Hello, welcome to this video. This video is part of a series that I'm doing with Rise to Occasion. We have 10 top trainers that suggested some teams for the Ultra League that we have this week. And we have the graph here. Again, I will put the link to the graphic in the description. Now, there's also Little Cup running, I believe, Element Remix format, but there was very little interest for that, so we only have Ultra League. You might also see that the graph in the link might be a little bit different because we're still tweaking some things, the colors and the theme of it. But this is the original draft that we had, and we're going to take a look at a few teams of this graphic. The first team that we have is by someone very well known in the PvP community. It's Wholesome _. He's a shoutcaster, he's a professional memer, he's a really good battler. He's the most well known for being the first streamer to hit legend in, rank 10 back then in season 3. So, you know, and it was with this team actually. He came with this team, he mastered it. One of the things that really threatens this team is Toxic Rogue, which is not as common anymore. However, let's take a look at how this team works. Basically, you lead. You have Machamp leads, just a very good lead in my opinion. Everything, it just basically just smashes everything. And especially in Ultra League, it just has that bulk to usually get to like 3 cross shops with counters. That's usually enough on anything that does resist counter. The coverage is really up to choice. In Ultra League, you can argue for Payback, for Cresselia, and Giratina. I personally would prefer Rock Slide to just one-shot Charizards. The safe switch is Shadow Snorlax with Superpower. You can also argue for Earthquake for a different Giratina and Registeel matchup or Dark Poison matchup. I think those two attacks are the ones that you want on Snorlax, and obviously Body Slam goes with that. Body Slams are really good. Same type attack bonus, charge attack. It's cheap and it's good. And then the last Pokemon is Alolan Mug. Now, Wholesome used this when Mug had Snarl. Now, the preferred fast attack is Poison Jab. And this actually doesn't make Alolan Mug as weak anymore to fighters, right? Because usually Snarl just doesn't do any damage on fighters, and fighters just crush it. But now, it's actually a very respectable both Poison and Dark attacker. The charge attack really is up to choice. I prefer Sludge Wave as a surprise, but there's merit for Acid Spray as well, where you just Acid Spray and Poison Jab your way through. Dark Pulse definitely mandatory. Now, you can also substitute the Machamp with Poliwrath for a better, for Ice Punch coverage, which I think is really good, and a better Swampert matchup as well. Machamp still wins that, but it's iffy. Then there is the Core Breakers as well. Gliscor did have that Aerial Ace buff, but I think that in Ultra League you want Night Slash and Earthquake anyway, so I don't think Gliscor is worse than it was before. You kind of want to go in the Alolan Mug there because it becomes an iffy matchup for the Gliscor, because the Gliscor has to, you know, build all the way to an Earthquake and then choose to bait or not. It really becomes a bait game. It's not a fun lead, I'll say that though, to be honest. Toxic Rogue, Machamp can fight back, get it low. It's definitely not ideal because it beats all 3, and the same goes for Buzzwole. Machamp, anything that's fragile, Machamp still hits it pretty well, right? Especially if fighting is single resistant. Let's take a team number 2 here. The second team that I have is from Jonathan Kelly. It's a very balanced team, which is unusual because Jonathan Kelly is very well known for memeing with Double Charm, and he also memes Master League all the time. A league that I personally like, but whatever. Jonathan Kelly's team is very solid because the 2 Pokemon in the back do quite well against the Registeel, which is one of the very few Pokemon that counter the Pidgeot. Now, I must say, I did put Registeel as a core breaker simply because it also does beat the Alolan Sandslash, right? The Focus Blast just one-shots. And in Ultra League, Registeel has more HP, and the drone just doesn't KO on the last one. Now, Pidgeot is a Pokemon. You win the lead, you probably just win the game, right? Because whatever swaps in, even if you don't have a hard answer, you can just debuff it with the Feather Dance. The team does kind of miss a pivot here. The thing is, if you say switch the Virizion here, you have Stone Edge to one-shot a Charizard. But the Charizard's wing attacks are double super effective, and that might mean that, you know, it just gets so much energy off you, and it will be that's very problematic. Now, I also put Deoxys as a core breaker here, simply because it has Rock Slide or Thunderbolt to hit Pidgeot as well as super effective damage. But Deoxys is very overcomable, especially for the Virizion matchup is not as bad as it looks like at times. The counters just don't really add up that quickly, and Psycho Boost does about 40%, I believe. Talonflame, I put it as a core breaker as well because, unlike against Charizard, like Alolan Sanchez does not put up a good fight here. Virizion does a little bit better there, though. Let's take a look at team number 3. Team number 3 is from House Stark, and this is very similar, basically the same concept as the Deoxys, Dubwool, Obstagoon team that he had. I mean, Steelix can be substituted for Double here. It can also be Shadow. It's a pretty flexible Pokemon. Now, Steelix does make the team less flexible, or it gives it some core breakers, right? Because Jellicent Tapu Fini and Golispot become just way worse. I think Golispot is the most common, but Jellicent is definitely a thing, right? That's why I always also recommend the Thunderbolt on Deoxys to hit water types for super effective, right? Because that's something that Deoxys, like Swampert, Deoxys isn't too great against. Although if it's not anymore in the back, then Steelix usually is pretty good. Steelix has some really... It has like Registeel Bulk, and man, it just destroys, like, especially with Breaking Swipe, it just destroys Pokemon like Cresselia, Giratina, any other dragons. The fairy types aren't as good as you want it to be though, because you know you run Dragon Tail and those don't add up. Either way, I think this is a team I want to try out myself, because Steelix seems like an absolute staple right now. The fourth team that we have here is from Jocks from Portugal, who will be playing in Barcelona next week, by the way. This team, at first, what I noticed was this is quite weak to a Virizion lead, because both Double and Tapu Fini are so-so. Tapu Fini obviously depends, its matchup's dependent if Virizion has the Leaf Blade. If you want to bet that, you can just swap it in, to be honest, because Tapu Fini has a pretty neutral matchup, because you have Moonblast that does a lot to Virizion. I think Double and Cofagrigus is a core I just love right now. It looks really good. Double also just fights back against, like really well against some of the meta Pokemon, such as Alona's Sandslash, and like it destroys that basically because the Shadow Claws are double resistant. On top of that, it can fight back against Registeel, against Obstagoon, Scrafty, right? Those are some of its worst matchups, and Body Slam just comes out really quick and is neutral on so many things. You have to pay back to hit Cresselia, Giratina, so... Double, I think, is an excellent Pokemon. Tapu Fini just really hard punishes Pokemon like Charizard, which are sometimes common, and the Moonblast coverage is just really good sometimes for Pokemon like Giratina. Cofagrigus, also one of my favorites, simply because of the neutral coverage amongst the whole meta. There are very few dark types. I think Mandibuzz might become a little bit more popular again because of the Aerial Ace buff, but I don't see it happening too much with Ice still around. And of course, Tapu Fini is very good against the Mandibuzz. But Cofagrigus otherwise has a very neutral matchup across the whole meta. Like, Double needs to get 2 paybacks, and you get 3 Dark Pulse probably, and you can like tweak with some shields, right? So that's basically what I think of this. The Double Cofagrigus core, and Tapu Fini it's a pretty safe Pokemon to use as well. So I really like this team. The save switch really depends on the lead. You don't want to save switch like your Tapu Fini into a Charizard. There's likely a punish in the back. And you don't want to swap in your Cofagrigus into a Deoxys lead because there's likely something like a Greedent in the back. So that really depends there. If you expect something, a counter for the other one in the back, try to flip it with the other option that you have. Another thing that you should not do is swapping Cofagrigus whenever you expect an Obstagoon in the back, because if that happens, the game is probably over. It shouldn't happen too much though. Cofagrigus generally is a very safe Pokemon. I really like this team. This team is for all the ABB Andes out there. It's Poliwrath lead. You can do Shadow if you want. Skuntank can be Shadow or regular. Drapion, I think, should be Shadow. Because usually 2 crunches from Shadow Drapion KOs most things in Ultra League, right? Just like regular does in Great League. So that's why I think Shadow works better in Ultra League than regular does. Now, one thing that's interesting here is that Skuntank now has Trailblaze, and that means you can, I'm not sure actually if that one-shot Swampert, but you can bet it does a lot, and allows you to flip that matchup possibly on the safe switch. So, it really comes down to what kind of coverage you want, right? I think Crunch remains mandatory for Cresselia and Giratina. Flamethrower is nice for Registeel. Crunch does hits decent there as well, though. I mean, you don't win the matchup regardless there. And there's Cobalion as well, right? If you run Crunch and Trailblaze, Cobalion walls you. So it's really up to what you want to draw out, what you want to hit. If you want to one-shot Swampers, go for Trailblaze. If you don't want to be walled by Cobalion, go for Flamethrower. That is my recommendation. Now, Drapion, I definitely recommend with Crunch and Sludge Bomb. Aqua Tail is more for a safe switch thing as well, right? If you get countered by something like a Cobalion, to be honest, Aqua Tail still doesn't win you that matchup. Or Galarian Stunfisk. And I think it's closer. The Sludge Bomb just hits harder on, like in case you need to close out, and in the end game there's a fairy and you need to Sludge Bomb it, right? Core breakers here are the Nidoqueen that basically can take on anything on this line and is very difficult. I think Drapion actually might be the best one to take it down because the crunch just come out so fast, and Nidoqueen needs to decide or bait or not, and Poison Fang is more expensive now, so Drapion is a better matchup. Pidgeot is just difficult to come back from, in my opinion, if you swap in your Skuntank, because again, debuff, they can get to the debuff before you get to your first crunch, so that's just annoying. And Gliscor, I think Gliscor is actually manageable because it needs to Earthquake, but with energy advantage it can be scary. And on top of that, you have Ice Punch on Poliwrath. I think this is I might try this ABB Andy team as well. So again, these were the teams that we just went through, these 5 teams. Some of these batters are streamers as well. I will put the link in the description to their Twitch channels if you want to check them out. Wholesome, Jonathan Kelly, House Stark, and Jangles, all streamers. Jocks is not a streamer, but he definitely is a valued community member, especially within Europe. Now the other 5, you can find them on Rice's channel. I'll put the link to his video in the description as well. He will cover the other 5 teams here. Again, we're still tweaking some of this. We're trying to involve more people in it, more community members, more content creators. You know, we just want to have everyone involved into this, sharing the team, sharing the knowledge. So that's what this is. These are some exciting 10 teams that I'm definitely going to be trying out, and maybe you get some creativity from it as well. Hope you like the video, and see you in the next one. Bye.